Okay, welcome everyone to our October 21 monthly virtual meeting for the South End Water Main Project, which we affectionately refer to as the SWIM project. If you are here for the first time, then welcome. If you would like to go back and see previous virtual meetings, feel free to visit the charlotteswim.com website, or of course the Charlotte Water YouTube page has all these virtual meetings on them. We've been doing these monthly for quite some time now. And there are lots of other virtual meetings that Charlotte Water has been happening for all of our projects over the past couple years. So feel free to go back and catch up if you'd like. There's also some pretty interesting, good educational videos up there, that YouTube website as well. That unidirectional flushing video is pretty good. So I'd recommend that as well. Feel free to spend your lunch breaks watching virtual meetings and educational videos about water. My name is Will. I'm the project manager for this specific project. That is my phone number and my email address. So if you need to reach out or have questions, feel free to do so. If you're looking to reach a slightly larger audience, the entire project team, you can send an email to that info@charlotteswim.com website. And then lastly, if you're one of the local businesses sort of in the corridor and you have more immediate needs, feel free to reach out to Keith. That's his contact there. He's sort of our day-to-day construction inspector, but he's also his specialty is to help out businesses that are going to be impacted by this project. So he's also a great resource if something is happening specifically, out front of your restaurant or business or whatnot. Real quick, I want to do a safety minute to talk about police, fire, and EMS and access to streets that we may be closing. So we have 2 lanes of South Boulevard closed down the middle, and then we're keeping the outer 2 lanes open at all times throughout the duration of all the different phases of this project. But we do have to close side streets periodically, and typically we just close them for 2 to 3 days at a time to go ahead and make the side street connection into the new water main. We've been tunneling up under the open lane of traffic, but we do still need to actually do a full road closure at times to make those connections. So if you think back to the connections we did at Newbern or at Marsh or at Elmhurst, we had to close those roads temporarily for usually 2 to 3 days at a time. So typically when we do that, we work heavily with CDOT. Those are Charlotte DOT roads, and we have to get their permission to close the roads, and we have to do certain traffic control measures, and they'll give us a permit eventually. And then we have to issue, notice to them when we're planning on closing the road. And they have an integrated system that's pretty interesting that I've sort of recently learned about. So they essentially can put this road closure notice into the system, and it tells Charlotte Fire Department, it tells CMPD, and it tells any EMS services about the road closure. So if something happens, of course, the emergency responders will not end up at a closed road trying to get to you. And it's a pretty interesting system. It works very well. We've had emergencies sort of off South Boulevard in the past year and a half, and the EMS system has worked well, and the fire department or the police were able to get to where they needed to be. I just thought it was a really cool system I wanted to point out. Even though there might be road closures, police, fire, and EMS will still be able to get to you. Real quickly, I wanted to talk about one other thing before we jump into the meeting. Monday afternoon, I received a couple voicemails and phone calls and text messages, and my inspectors did as well, and my contractor did as well. We've been doing a lot of communication with everyone in the South Boulevard corridor about this project, and we're not always sure if the communication is working and if we're actually reaching people. So it was nice to sort of have people be reaching back out to us, and we know that it worked. And we wanted to really thank those people who were reaching out to sort of give us updates on issues that were happening. Secondarily, I want to point out that we haven't yet gotten to the Ideal Way Remount Road intersection to tie into that water line. That's not going to be we're not going to move to that phase even until probably like December-ish timeframe, and we won't have that connection made until January, February timeframe. So just want to point out that we're not there yet in terms of the SWIM project. And then previously, I had sort of discussed, actually the last meeting, I talked about sort of a reminder of, again, why we're doing this project specifically, why we're putting a new 24-inch water main down the middle of South Boulevard. And of course, the reason is because the current water main it's too small and it's too old. So we're not only updating the the system, putting in a new water pipe so that it can provide long, reliable service, but we're also making it bigger so that there's additional capacity for growth in this area. Real quick, our agenda, it's pretty close to the same as it is every month, except, of course, we will be talking about the Dairy Branch Sewer Project a bit today. That project has been rolled into our project, so some of my pictures will be about sewer and how sewer construction happens. It's a little bit different. The pipe is different, the material is different, but it's also similar. We dig in the ground, we put pipes in the ground. Real quickly, next 30 to 90 days, so we're in phase 6 right now. We're starting, the phase starts just north of Elmhurst and it goes just past Poindexter. And we're hoping to be close to wrapping up with this phase in early December. So, of course, you'll see the barrier wall move down the road a little bit, move north a little bit into what we're calling phase 7. And so phase 7 will be in the Remount Ideal intersection. So it will start, right where the current phase ends. So just past Poindexter. And then it will go on up to pass through Ideal, Remount. And we'll be in that phase for 2 to 3 months, per the usual. And then lastly, I want to talk about the Dairy Branch timeline. So if you just see this picture on the right here, this is what's going to be the concrete cutting marks for the last piece of the product that we're doing in Poindexter. So we're going to cut out a trench there, put in the new sewer pipe, and then the square here will be the new manhole that we add before we finish up this section of Dairy Branch sewer that's out in Poindexter. So, fingers crossed, weather permitting, we will be out of Poindexter in December. And there will be great rejoicing. Phasing I've talked about previously. We're breaking this up into as many phases as we can to reduce the traffic impacts. Unfortunately, we do have to close large intersections to cross traffic just because there's usually a big 24-inch valves that we put in place. And these big valves allow us to operate our system and to isolate sections here and there as need be. And so what we've been doing, of course, is we've been building up to the next big valve, putting that in place, activating the water line south of that valve, and then moving our phase north. And so we're slowly activating and bringing on this water line. Right now, it goes from Scaly Bark, intersection South Boulevard, and it's activated all the way up to just past Marsh and Newbern. The road closure that we presented last month still sort of stands. There was a brief moment in time Monday when Elmhurst was closed. Duke showed up and did some work without us being aware of it. We have since coordinated and talked with them, and they are only going to be doing partial lane closures further up Elmhurst. Actually, I think it might even be past Haverford. There's a large development that's happening over here at this sort of corner of Elmhurst and South Boulevard. And so as that development happens, Duke needs to go and move some of their utilities around. So that's what they're doing. But otherwise, this detour map works. So Elmhurst, you need to take Elmhurst all the way down to get around, or if you're coming from the neighborhood, you come back up Elmhurst. Otherwise, using Park Road, if you want to get to Uptown, or using South Tryon or I-77 are your best options. Poindexter will still be closed until we finish up with this phase, until we repave that new sewer we're putting in. And then, of course, once we get done with that, then we'll fully reopen, and at that point, we'll be fully reopening everything. And this, the barrier walls here in red, that will all move north. So today, in our Construction 101, sort of how it's made section of this presentation, I've got some good pictures of trenching and excavation. We're going to have some more boring pictures. And then lastly, I've got some pictures of paving field compaction and paving, the sort of the final, everything's done now. We're moving on. So those are, of course, probably the least interesting pictures, but the most exciting pictures to look at, because, once we've done that stuff, we've moved north and we're not coming back. Here is the current state of Poindexter. It is fully closed. As previously mentioned, the Dairy Branch Sewer Project sort of comes down South Boulevard a little bit, and eventually it ends up over in Freedom Park. And it was decided that since we were already going to be sort of in this area of South Boulevard with the construction zone set up, that it made sense for us to go ahead and build part of that sewer project as part of our water project. So to reiterate, this is a waterline project that we are building. It's called the South End Water Main. But we have now added a small piece of the Dairy Branch sewer project that we are building because it's in the same area. And we thought it'd be better just to go ahead and close and disrupt this area once, as opposed to us doing our water line and having the other contractor come back not too much longer from now and sort of having to reclose everything. So once we're done in this section, we'll be done in this section. That sewer line comes down Poindexter and it stops just short of Haverford, and then it goes back behind in between Poindexter and Ideal Way Remount, or Ideal Way, and it kind of winds its way down to Sedgefield Park, goes out to McDonald, goes out to where Park turns into Kenilworth Scott, and then it kind of goes under those apartments all the way over there to Freedom Park. So it's a pretty big extensive sewer line. It's going to take flow from everything east of South Boulevard, and it eventually takes it all the way down to the corner of Park and Tybola Road. Here's a picture of that work zone. Again, since there's a water line and a sewer line kind of really close together, that's a really tight work zone. I'd like to reiterate and show people that we're not just taking up a bunch of extra space, but because we feel like it. There's absolutely, every bit of space that we fence off, we need. Those two backhoes right there, they're practically rubbing against each other. So it's tight working in there, but it's necessary, and it's how the work gets done. Here's a picture looking down in that trench. So once they've sort of dug this hole, they set up a sort of like a set of train tracks almost that the boring machine sits on. And so that will allow them to sort of dig a horizontal hole underneath the open lane of traffic on South Boulevard. It's real deep, so the traffic won't be impacted. And they put this machine on rails basically. And this machine, it's pretty cool. It digs a tube, it's called casing. We put a casing underneath South Boulevard. And then once that casing is done, then we go ahead and slide the pipe that we're actually using for the water inside that tube, inside that casing. So this is ductile iron pipe. That's what DIP stands for. And in order to get this piping slid into the slightly larger piping that we bored under South Boulevard, we add these things called spiders. And they're basically just sort of straps that have little extensions on them, like little feet. And then they have plastic skid plates on them so that we can slide this piping down into the existing tube that we just bored under South Boulevard once we're done. And then we'll go ahead and fill the space between this ductile iron pipe and the larger pipe. We'll fill that with concrete to make it all nice and strong and last a long time. Here's what that sort of boring setup looks like. So this is the casing that they're putting in, and that apparatus down there will actually sort of it's got an auger on it. So inside this casing, there's a drilling piece, but then also it pushes. So it also pushes this tube through the hole that the auger has drilled. So it's got sort of a dual functionality. It's really quite interesting, and it means we don't have to open cut the street and close down the road any more than we have to. So it's a pretty awesome tool. We use it a lot. We use it on almost every side street connection. We definitely use it on every side street connection. Jumping back over real quick to what sewer looks like. So I haven't really showed any manholes yet on this product because we don't have manholes on our water product. We just have valves and we have buried pipe. But in sewer, you have manholes, and that's wherever you're turning or connecting to an old system or maybe changing the elevation. This is what it looks like. This is a nice fresh new manhole. So of course it smells nice and clean, nice concrete finish to it. You can see it comes in these rings, and you sort of stack the rings. It doesn't come as one piece, so it's a whole bunch of rings that you stack and put down in a hole, and then the sewer flows down in the bottom here. And here's the sewer pipe coming in, also ductile iron pipe, and then the sewer will flow through the manhole and then flow up this other pipe. And there's probably a slightly different angle that it comes in and that it goes out, so that way you can turn. Pipe doesn't really bend well, so you just connect the dots to make your turns by having straight points connected at manholes. In some cases, we're not putting in a new manhole. We're adding a manhole to an old pipe. So this pipe already exists, and we need to connect to that pipe and take the flow from that pipe into this new existing manhole. And so we use what's called a doghouse. So if you were to stand down here in the trench and look at it this direction, you would see there's a notch cut out at the bottom. So you can lower this ring down over top of the existing pipe. It looks kind of like a doghouse. And then once that pipe is in place, you pour the floor. So then we're going to pour this floor. So now what we end up with is it's almost like having an old pipe that runs through the wall of a new section of manhole. And so we poured the floor in there. So now it's one poured piece of concrete, and then a section of this pipe will either be cut out and removed, or a hole will be cut in it. So now the sewer will interact with this manhole, which we then will connect to the new line. So that's sort of how you take old infrastructure and connect it to new infrastructure. Doghouse manhole. And then jumping back over to the water line project, this is sort of what it looks like when we're done. This was a side connection into this parking lot, into this apartment complex. It's an apartment or townhomes thing over here to the right. Can't really see it, but we went ahead and dug down and connected the new service in to the new water line, and then came back and backfilled it really well, and then paved over it really well. So it's not 100% seamless, but it's pretty close to not noticeable, and of course it's as good as new. We did similar things wherever we had to dig up sidewalk. Sidewalks are important, so we of course come back and do fresh concrete wherever there were sidewalks that we had to tear up to put new water services in. This is a new, there's 2 valves there, and then there's probably a meter or something in that little box there. And then the line was dug or run right there, and so we had to, of course, pour a new sidewalk for that. This is the new sidewalk. This is the water meter. This is the new sidewalk out front of the country club over there, next to Chick-fil-A. So again, fresh new concrete is always great to see. It means we're done. Okay, and then you may have noticed we haven't really had any pipe out in South Boulevard in a while. We had all the pipe installed. Now we're at the backfill step of that. So this is a big, huge rolling compactor. We're putting the dirt in the trench where the pipe is, and the pipe has been tested, so it holds the water in there like it's supposed to, and it holds pressure. And now we're bringing in material and putting it back in, and then we're compacting it. We don't just go and put the old material back in the trench. We actually use what's called select fill. So that old material goes off somewhere else. It's called unsuitable, is a technical terminology. And then what we put back in the trench is select fill. So this is sort of the highest quality ingredient for making a road. And so we put in select fill. It compacts to a very, very hard surface, which works as an excellent base for putting down asphalt. So select fill, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's worth it. It makes the road last longer. It makes our pipe last longer. It's just better all around for everything. And that's the last of my presentation today. So if there are any questions, now is the time to put them in the chat or the Q&A, whichever you have access to. I will pause and take a few deep breaths. There is nothing. I will once again show my slides with our contact information in them. Again, the info at Charlotte Swim address is the best way to sort of reach the group of us working on this project, the project team. If you want to find old videos about virtual meetings, the Charlotte Swim website is good to visit. There's also a bunch of other information on there. And then this has got a lot of requests for this this past week. So if you want to get on our text message chain, which we send out a lot of information about traffic. So not too long ago we had a car hit a telephone pole, and then Duke had to do an emergency shutdown of the road. And that's the kind of stuff that we will send out. So if you want to be on that text string, text South End Water to 31996. And then if a driver hits the telephone pole and Duke decides to come out and close the open lane, we'll text everyone and let you know. So if you're on your commute home, you can try to avoid the area. And then our contact slide one more time. Again, my name is Will. That's my phone number, my email address. So that's one way to reach us. Or Keith is sort of, again, he's the on-site day-to-day construction inspector, and he does a lot of work with the businesses in the area. So if you're a local business, write down his name and number, reach out if you have to. Okay, I see a question. When the phases move down the road, will the barriers move as well, specifically the ones in front of Harris Teeter? Yes, that's correct. The concrete barriers are what CDOT is having us use to keep cars from driving into our work zone. And so we have water-filled barriers at either end. As the first first safety measure. So if a car hits a water fill barrier, it's softer than hitting concrete barrier. But yes, the concrete barriers all move with the phase. And so the where the last barrier is now, which is just north of Elmhurst, that's where the first barrier will be. And then that will continue up through the intersection of Ideal Way and Remount Road, and then it will continue up just past that a little bit. Thank you for the question, and thank you for coming. Okay, I don't see any more questions, so then I'm going to go to the last slide is our logos, and thank y'all for your time. I hope y'all have a good rest of your afternoon. It's a nice, beautiful fall day.